Well, hello, DCO Nation. Welcome to Deadcom Outdoors Radio. This is the show where the tide set the tone and the bite tells the story. We're diving into everything saltwater inshore kayak fishing, from lures and locations to weather, water, and winning tactics. If it helps you hook up on more fish, we're talking about it right here. So grab your paddle, check your drag, and here we go. Well, hello, DCO Nation, and welcome to Deadcom Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. My name is Chris, and if you are into inshore saltwater kayak fishing, you have found the right show, because that's all we talk about. That's all we do, with a few exceptions. But we're going to keep it pretty light today. But guys, I want to invite you to follow me on all the social medias: Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. I am actually a little bit behind on putting out some YouTube videos. I think I'm like 3 trips behind. And one of the trips, Christian and I kind of fished kind of together but separately over the weekend, which I want to pick your brain on here a little bit right off the bat. Guys, go over to my social medias, just search Deadcom Outdoors and we can get connected. So tonight, I've got on a guest that I have been wanting to get on for a little while, but never really had a chance to make a connection with, really until ICAST. But I want to welcome Christian Conley of Zman. He is the media manager for Zman. And also how I found him, I was following him on his YouTube channel, Make Time for Fishing. Yes, I mean, make sure I get that right. Make Time for Fishing. So Christian, again, I really appreciate you coming on. How are you doing?
Oh, no, I appreciate you having me. I'm doing great. Life is good. Not much to complain about. Fishing, well, I guess the only thing I could complain about is we're in the middle of the summer. It's dang hot out, and the fishing's a little bit tough right now. There's always something to target, of course. We're lucky to live down in the low country, so we have a lot of really great fisheries at our disposal. So when one thing kind of shuts down, we can turn on to something else. But no, things are good, and Z-Man's got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. So we are very excited for a lot of this stuff to hit the market in the next month or two. Some of them will be late mid Q4, but a lot of them are coming late Q3. So that's exciting for us.
Yeah, when I was down in ICAST, I probably walked through your booth probably 3 or 4 different times, and you guys had a lot of foot traffic coming through there, which is, it's got to be exciting, and really the encouragement of all the eyes on those new products has got to be great for you guys.
Yes, yeah. And this is my first ICAST and my first year with Zman, coming up on a year next month, actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a whirlwind, I suppose. Like, I can't believe it's already almost been a year, but it's cool to be on this end of it, because I was a huge Z-Man fan I would say I was fishing exclusively, Elastech soft plastics for 6 or 7 years before I started with Z-Man. And truth be told, for a long time, I had no idea they were right up the road in Ladson. I knew them as an inshore bait company, not realizing that that's a drop in the bucket in terms of the products that we make. It's largely freshwater, and bass is, really the bread and butter, because, I think it's 49 out of the 50 states have bass, but not 49 out of the 50 states have inshore fishing. But that's what I knew it from being in Charleston. So, but yeah, so it's been really cool to see, the product development side of things, from, conception of an idea to actually bring it to market. It's a lot slower oftentimes than people realize. And it can be, 18 months, 2 years between like pitching an idea in a meeting and get enough people interested in it before it actually comes to fruition and actually hits the shelves. And so I've only been around for like half of one of those cycles, so to speak. So hopefully in another year, I'll be able to see an idea come to actually, hitting the shelves at Hadrill's or what have you. But so it's been really cool, though, to at least see part of the stage where we're talking about all these marketing ideas and meetings, and actually getting to show people hands-on at ICAST and see what the at least the retailers and media people think about all these products that we think are cool. But it's kind of our first real chance to show people. So it was cool being on the inside after looking from the outside for so long.
You kind of touched on a little bit, but one of the questions I did want to ask was, when the team gets together to develop like a new lure, are they trying to solve a problem, or is it like, hey, I got all of a sudden just this epiphany of I think this will work. So how does that come about?
Yeah, so it's what's really great is we are a team, like a pretty tight-knit team that has a ton of really fishy guys and gals. We all kind of have our own preferences in terms of what fish we target, but we have the bass world, we have the saltwater world, and everything in between. We have a lot of people who have like a real addiction to pan fishing as well. So we kind of have our feet in a lot of different areas. And so people have, sometimes it's as simple as someone just being like, hey, I thought this, I was out in the water and this profile seemed like this bait fish or whatever seemed to really be getting hit. And Zman doesn't really have something to fit that niche. Or it also is sometimes, and then, we run with it and we make a couple samples or something similar, like a prototype mold, try that out. And we can, shoot, rather than having the big production mold, we can make single baits, like soft plastic baits, like by hand, and like try, make a half dozen, and see how that works out. Or it sometimes is like one of our pros comes to us and says, hey, like take, for instance, like, the scented jerk shads line or something. It's like, hey, we have so many different sizes in that lineup between, 7 inches and now down to 3 inches. But so for a long time, the, 4-inch size was really the bread and butter. And then we had a couple of our pros come to us. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, right here, it's the 4-inch right here.
Sure. And in the bass world, they often use up to the 7-inch size too. But then flip the script, certain time of year, certain lakes, certain point of the bait fish cycle, there is a need for a 3-inch size. So we introduced that a year or so ago. Mm-hmm. And I right when I started last winter, actually, I was throwing that around inshore on like a Ned head. And oh my gosh, man, the little bit of scent and just like how small that, because it's a really slim, a 7-inch jerk shad, that's a lot of material. It's like a pretty big body. But when you slim it down or go down to a 3-inch, it's a really slim profile. It's bigger than like a slim swim or something like that, but it's smaller than a minnows. And it's that on a light head, and having that little bit of Procure scent infused in it, it really was like a killer wintertime bait. I had a lot of fun with that. That was purely product development. It was not for fun. It was strictly for the job. I wouldn't have been doing that otherwise, But anyway, so sometimes it's popular demand from pros. Sometimes it's someone pitching a specific idea in a meeting and we get excited about it. But also sometimes we just have an outpouring of requests from like the general public, because between myself and a couple other members in the team, we get requests or suggestions for products. And sometimes it's a different size, like say the jerk shads or like our swag. We've had some people saying we need to make a really big swag or a really small swag or everything in between. And sometimes it's really niche fisheries where there's really not that many people demanding it. They're just kind of loudest voice in the room. And that's great though, but we still take note of it. But then sometimes we'll get 50, 100 people who say the same thing, and they're from all over the country. And it kind of lights a fire in us to see if that's something worth like prototyping and exploring. So we have weekly meetings where we discuss all these different ideas and things that come across our respective desks, and then sort of see if we get enough support to kind of get the ball rolling to at least get to the prototyping stage, I would say.
One of the things that you briefly just touched upon very, very quickly was pan fishing. And
Oh,
again,
sure.
I know that, we're inshore saltwater, redfish, flounder, trout, all that kind of stuff. But there was the new ChatterTail that came out. And
Yeah.
I worked it in the tank that you
Hmm.
guys explain what this thing is, because this thing is so
Yeah.
cool.
It's I would say that if we announced, gosh, I want to say the final count was 19 products at ICAST this year. Um, and I think I actually, there might be a category I'm not even counting, but I'll say 19 products. And I would say, by and large, the majority of people said the ChatterTail was the one that they thought was going to be like a potential future bestseller for us. And the
No
reason
kidding.
is, so I actually have a sample of one here. This was like an early prototype. I went on a probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks after I started the job. I went up to the mountains and they gave me a couple of these because they were like, hey, we're planning to bring this to market next year, but we're still in the prototyping stage and we want to just get as many people to fish these as possible. Go throw these at some trout. And so this is the quarter ounce size. And this is the biggest size. But anyway, so essentially the ChatterTail is sort of like an inline spinner reimagined. So instead of a spinning blade at the top, we actually have a chatterbait blade. It's a willow style
Mhm.
one. So it's like a willow leaf chatter blade. And because rather than spin around, it's just going side to side around the head, there's no line twist. So everyone who's ever fished an inline spinner, which I would say
Yep.
a lot of many fishermen have, and there's many varieties of them, and they've been around for a very long time, and they still have relevance today because they always catch fish. It's sort of like when in doubt, that's one of those things you can reach into a tackle box just to get a bite.
Right.
Um, this having the flash combined with the chatter, the sound, and not producing line twist, which after you throw around an inline spinner for 30, 40 minutes, a couple hours, you start getting some pretty hectic stuff going on in your reel, in your
Mhm.
spool, where the line starts twisting and you get all kinds of wind knots. And in theory, it's what's really cool about an inline spinner or the new ChatterTail is you can give this to a kid and they can cast and cast and cast and they will wear out some fish, but you don't have to rebait them.
Yeah.
But with an inline spinner, they'd get line twists, and then you'd have all sorts of different issues. Like you and I, we're going to get line twists and we're going to have issues to deal with. But if it's a kid or someone who's less experienced fishing, they're not going to be equipped or necessarily know how to handle that.
Yep. Yep. So
With this, you don't have to worry about that.
Christian, hold on one second.
Yes, please.
Hold those thoughts. We're coming up on our first break. I
Sure.
know I had to break in there, but
No.
we got to pay some bills. So hang on, guys. We're into the first segment. Don't go anywhere. We're talking with Christian Conley with Zman. You're listening to Dead Come Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network. Well, welcome back, DCO Nation. We are talking with Christian Conley of Z-Man and Make Time for Fishing. And that first segment, it flew by. I had to actually just interrupt the flow of everything. We stumbled out of that first segment, but this is what you get. You know what, guys? There is no editing in this. This is just, two buddies talking fishing with commercial breaks, and that's what this is. So, guys, we're gonna continue the new lure talk that Z-Man came out this year, because there's one that I am just super excited for.
Yeah.
I did a ICAST review a couple of weeks ago. I put out a little short on it, and it's the Mud Stud. And I think this thing for inshore fishermen, yeah, absolutely. I think is going to be. I hate using the word game changer, but I love the profile. So, give us the rundown of this thing.
Yeah. So it's just honestly, I've thrown a few, actually more than a few mud minnow imitations over the years, just trying them. Never found a pre-rigged one. Certainly not one like this. So if you're familiar, do you do much bass fishing?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Argobius?
Oh yeah, I've got Yeah, and matter of fact,
Hmm.
early spring, late winter, I use it for inshore. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got about
And it gets
6, 8 packs
hammered.
behind
It
me.
gets
Yeah,
hammered.
yeah,
The problem is the hook is not meant for 30-inch plus redfish or giant
right.
flounder. And it's not meant for that. It's meant for smallmouth and clear water. And so basically, we reimagined that in the mud studs. I don't know how well it's going to show up in the camera, but I'm holding one for the listeners. And this is the smaller size, 2 3/4 inches. And what's really cool about this and the Gobius is it has an internal rigged harness system through the belly. So the weight is distributed along the belly, which gives it a really low center of gravity. And besides the fact that that means rather than shooting down to the bottom when it hits the water, it kind of glides down to the bottom. It also keeps it from tipping side to side so much, like not much rocking side to side. It really is just tail kick. And what that means is even though it has an exposed hook, it keeps the hook up and away from structure very, very well. And also because it has this big, I'll say nose section in front of the bait with a lot of Elastech in there, it actually bounces and crawls through oysters really well. And what's so essentially the differences between this and the Gobius, it has a beefier hook. So just I think it's 2x or 3x strong. Don't quote me on that, but it's a beefed up hook version of the Gobius, and it also has the proprietary swag tail from our Swag LT, which the Octane Minnows also has. And it's a hybrid between a T-tail and a wedge tail design. And what's really cool about that is it has very quick startup,
Yeah,
and it gets a really wide kicking action no matter what speed you retrieve it at. If you burn it, great. If you reel it really slow, it still gets kicking really quickly. It just moves a lot of water. And what's really great is so this is because it's designed to mimic a mud minnow, Kogaho minnow, what else they call them, gudgeons, killing
right.
minnow.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a million different names for them. And so this is actually the striped killie right here, which you'll see in a if you use a minnow trap every now and then you'll see one that looks like this, but regionally they look differently. And so we have, I think it's 10 different colors to match different mud minnows. And it's a bottom. What was the term we use for it? A bottom hugging swim bait. And
Yeah.
so because of that harness system and just the way it skips through the mud really well, it just drives them crazy. And I've fortunately now after we're past ICAST, I've been able to grab a couple of samples from work because we had very few going into ICAST and we were trying to use them for content and shoots and things like that. And these are going to be a big deal. They're just a really awesome little swim bait, perfect design, and the profile. It does not get more realistic. I love every now and then throwing a mud minnow on a jig head or something like
Right.
that. There's no need for that anymore. This is just better, and it's a lot of fun. And because you're on the bottom, I mean, it drives flounder crazy, redfish, trout, that you name it. It's just a great little swim bait, and available in two sizes: 2 3/4 inches, 3 1/4 inch, 1/4 ounce, and 3/8 ounce sizes, which are a little bit heavy for inshore, but it has a lot of Elastech to it, and it's really you're trying to make sure you're on the bottom to best mimic that mud minnow. And with the way the harness is rigged up, it's not an issue how heavy it is. It's really just a great little swim bait.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I can't wait to really test out is, swimming it around those oyster bars because that's where these reds, trout, whether they're hovering right above them or not, that's where you want to be. And some days get pretty expensive, when you're around those things and you're
Yeah,
constantly breaking off. Now it's not snag proof. Nothing is inside those
sure.
oysters,
No,
but I mean, if you can get in and out half the time, I mean, that's a win in my
yeah,
book. So
absolutely. And I know what you're talking about all too well. Even when you're using like completely Texas rigged stuff, you can still
oh
have the
yeah.
unlucky cast where you get wedged between like a gap in an oyster cluster or something like that. You finally pull up the cluster and the whole cluster comes up and you're just barely hooked on the edge or something like that. Another one that's really surprising that I think you wanted to touch on briefly also. I have samples downstairs. I forgot to grab them out of the garage. The flats class jig head, the way
Yes.
that one's set up as well, it's shocking how well it comes through cover. It's got a similar situation with the low center of gravity where so you know how most jig heads you have this is a flashback mini, so just ignore what it actually is, but you have all the weight in the top and then just the hook attached. With the flats class jig head, some of the weight, so say it's a 1/8 ounce jig head, some of the weight is distributed through the bait keeper down here. There's like a conical hybrid bait keeper, so it's got the ridge conical style, but then it also has a wire, which is great for rigging Elastech baits because you do the pull, pinch, pull it down over it, and it locks it into place really well. And so that when you look at like an 1/8 ounce version of the flats class jig head versus any other 1/8 ounce swim bait head you ever looked at, the head is really small. And it's because it's distributed through the shank of the hook a little bit. At least, the top, I'll say third of the jig head has that bait keeper taking up some of the weight. And what that means is it doesn't shoot to the bottom again. It glides a little bit more than it normally would while on a jig head. And it's also a really streamlined, smooth shape to the head. And it comes through grass, cover, and it's still an exposed hook. And it's just kind of, we were doing a shoot not that long ago, maybe 2 weeks back. And we were a couple hours into it and everyone kind of looked at each other and was like, wait, have you broken off yet? No. Have you broken off? No. And we were fishing inshore around structure, if you're not rubbing, you're not racing kind of thing. If you're not snagging, you're probably not where the fish are. And no one was breaking off. And it was just kind of one of those things where just like, this is, we wanted it to work this way, but we just didn't really appreciate how well it was going to work. And it's also just a really, really nice premium looking and feeling jig head with a really sharp, strong hook, cool colors. It stands out well compared to a lot of other, like you're just not going to see colors on a jig head inshore like you are on these. And CA really did a good job with helping pick the colors for those and helping design what he really wanted, which was an exposed hook that just came through grass and cover really, really well.
Yeah. And I actually had the pleasure of chatting with him for about 20 minutes. He was at the Fitzgerald Rod booth and got to catch up with him. And we talked just very briefly about the jig heads and how, I think he used the word like it plowed through grass, and just kind of,
that sounds like him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I can't wait to get my hands on these things either. So, all right. I want to touch on at least one more thing, and that is the stump. What's that?
No, I said please.
Oh, okay. Is the Stuntman sinking jerk bait, which is something a little different from Zman.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of funny because one of the things we've been preaching about Elastech for a really long time, one of the which if you're not familiar with Zman, Elastech is our proprietary super plastic. It's 10 times stronger than traditional plastisols. And another key selling point and key characteristic of it that makes it such an effective material for soft plastics is it's naturally buoyant, so it floats. It's also non-toxic and all of that stuff as well. But because of the buoyancy, say you're fishing a Ned rig where you're dead sticking a jig on the bottom, the plastic will stand up like this with the head of the jig down here. So it's really enticing. And it's really great for a lot of profiles, but it doesn't make sense to have a floating material for every profile in all situations. And so we finally, after it wasn't like it was a new idea, we've wanted to do this for a long time, have a sinking version of Elastech. And finally, we, if you want to say, for lack of a better term, crack the code, we figured out a way to make sinking Elastech. Essentially, it has all the same characteristics of normal Elastech. It's a little bit denser and just dense enough to have a really nice natural fall when rigged on like an unweighted hook. So we announced 2 profiles in the sinking material initially. We're just calling it sinking Elastech. It was a really clever name, but that's, it's descriptive, and that's what it is, because it still has the same toughness that people are used to, the 10x tough, but now it can sink. And it's so we released 2 profiles, stick bait, which is very much a bass bait, but I'm really excited to throw it at redfish as well. I know it's going to work. But and trout too, of course, and flounder, everything else. But the Stuntman is our new sinking jerk shad. And essentially, it is a fluke style jerk bait with a fork tail. And it's rather than horizontally, it's vertically forked. And it has a really nice erratic darting motion when twitched. So it's like a slow sinking twitch bait when rigged weedless and weightless. And it's you can work it if you work it fast. It's just darting barely subsurface like a walk the dog lure. And man, it is really fun when you're fishing that to just see it disappear because you see it on the surface and all of a sudden it's gone. Yeah. And it's I would say the intention originally was definitely for the bass market. And there's a lot of different things you can do with that. Throw it on a chatterbait and kind of get your chatterbait to sink down a little further because it's a sinking material now. You can rig it weedless, do drop shot, whatever you want to do. But the inshore people, like I was talking to a lot of snook guys down in Florida, they are super jacked up about it's heavy. So because it's denser, it's also really a heavy material. And the Stuntman actually has a pretty big body profile for the two sizes are 3 and 5 inch. It's actually 4 and 5 inch. The 4 inch looks really small because the 5 inch has such a big body. When you shrink it down even an inch, the proportion shrinks so significantly, it looks like a much smaller bait until you put them next to each other and kind of measure them next to each other. You can kind of see that difference, but it looks half the size. So it's like a really nice finesse size.
One of the things that I want to throw it at is flounder, because I love throwing a jerk shad for flounder. And when I saw that getting it on the bottom and I mean, again, a no-brainer for me. So yeah, man, I can't wait to do that. So we got about 30 seconds.
Please. Sure.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. No. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you had any more questions specifically. But
no, I do. And a matter of fact, do you want to make this a 2-part show? Do we want to keep going?
Man. Maybe. What else you got for me?
I'll tell you what. I will get back up with you because the conversation, I've got so many little notes here that we need to probably in the next couple of months. Let's get back up and let's hit the rest of these topics because we barely touched the surface. And I'm just soaking this in like a sponge. But Christian, I really appreciate you coming on. I will definitely get you back on here in the next couple of months.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I also would love to come up and fish Merle's Inlet with you sometime. I've actually only come and fished once, and that was late last winter, I want to say, and I just had a tough time. But I had a tough time all last winter. It was just a weird one for me. But I would love to link up with you and see if I can pick up some pointers from you.
Come on up. Anytime at all, especially flounder. We are just a flounder factory up here. So guys, again, thank you so much, Christian. And remember, conservation starts with you. Release a fish for someone else to enjoy. And you've been listening to Dead Calm Outdoors right here on the Outdoor Radio Network.